Hi there guys, how's it going? So remember the other day how we had a little talk about, okay, if we look through the metal album right now and we know that that's going to be 7-star Joshua and Neku, that's going to be 6 and 7-star Prime Maleficent, that's going to be KHUx 19, that's going to be 6 and 7-star versions of the VIP medal, which turned out to be White Mushroom, that's going to be the high score challenge medal at 6 and 7-star, the Illustrated Toon Sora, and then I said, well that leaves 2 medals unaccounted for, and I said before you do your KHUx 19 pulls, just wait just a minute, just a couple more days and we'll find out what that is, and then if it's crap, go ahead and pull for KHUx 19 if you want, or just keep saving up, or if it's good, then you can pull on it. Well, we now know what those are. Allow me to introduce you to Toon Namine. So Toon Namine is the very first upright power medal in the entire game that copies forward. So we have the final copycat medal in the entire set, well rather to complete the set of every single attribute and every single upright / reverse that copies backwards and copies forwards. So I don't think this will be the last copycat medal by any stretch of the imagination, but it is the one that finally completes the set. There is now one of every single attribute copying forwards and backwards. So, do I think you should get it? Yeah, obviously copycat medals get a very good reputation just simply because of how usable they are, how much they never seem to depreciate in value, because you can always copy the current best medals in the game and get those best multipliers out, even if you don't times them by, you know, people still use tier 5 medals, tier 5 copycat medals, and even though they're only timesing by, 150% guilt instead of 230, that's still a very good thing if you're copying a, an extremely powerful medal. So anyway, upright power copying forward is a little bit funny. It's a little bit funny. In the entire game, there are only 7 keyblades that have an upright power slot in them, and as much as I would love to say, yeah, I definitely want to see this medal being pulled for by everyone, it's worth just tempering expectations a little bit before I say definitely go ahead and pull for it. So let's go ahead and have a look through the different attributes. Okay, so like I mentioned, there are 7 keyblades in the entire game with that upright power slot. So, okay, here's the problem. Back in the day, you used to have a copycat medal copying onto like Illustrated Kara EX, for example, and the reason you do that is because Illustrated Kara EX, when cast 2.5-ish times, would pretty much meet the current buff cap. With the buffers that we have right now, however, obviously they don't do it for the full PSM if you're talking about like one of these ones, but Illustrated, obviously Kara EX Plus, Shion EX Plus meet the pretty much cap out the current buff cap, literally in every single aspect, either upright or reverse. So we definitely don't need to cast them twice. The issue is, right, okay, the reason I have Era here is because he's an insanely good buffer towards the power attribute. He gives 120% guild boost across the board, which I can use on every other one of my medals, and from that point onwards, if I'm going to use like magic or speed, I only have to buff, magic or speed, and I guess reverse as well. See, if I was to put Namine here, for example, I'd still need to have a really good buffer in that spot right there, and in effect I'd be casting the buffer twice. Now that would be fine if the buffer was a really high damaging medal. The only problem is, right now the best buffers in the game are all target medals, and for all target medals they don't quite get as big of a boost as single or random target medals do. So I'm talking about like PvP, for example. In PvP, I want to have as minimal all target medals as possible, and single target from pretty much that point onwards, which is what I do. Obviously, Roxas, Illustrated Roxas here becomes single target with only one enemy left, so I have an AoE medal at the front, and then single target, random target, which is single target effectively, and I'm basically copying onto a single again. So effectively, I want to minimize my AoE medals. Unless they introduce better buffers in the game, which are not necessarily better, but buffers in the game which are only single target, I don't necessarily want to have my Namine in this slot right here, because I'm going to need to have another buffer here, which I don't really have anyway. So what I'm getting at is, for Fairy Stars and Stroke of Midnight, for example, let's go ahead and find that. Well, that's Fenrir. Stroke of Midnight, I don't necessarily want it out the front, so in effect that sort of rules out 2 of the 7 keyblades immediately that I'd want to go ahead and put that on. Let's go ahead and have a look at the rest though. Okay, so naturally all the monotype power keyblades come to mind. Starlight is unfortunately ruled out. Treasure Trove, yes, but it's such a wonky keyblade. Like, obviously you're only ever going to use this in PvP anyway, and you can't use it in the back to copy onto a pet slot because, well, because obviously it's reverse power, not upright power. The best slot is slot 3 right there, but it's such a wonky slot, right? It's like, well, you're copying onto a 2.4, so if you have a really powerful medal in slot 4 right there, it's sort of having its potential wasted. But I mean, I guess if you have anything but a tier 8 medal, then you, like, okay, I have like Illustrated Goofy, for example, which is probably around here somewhere. So let's say go ahead and put him there. Basically, I'd want to run the configuration like this because I'm using a tier 8 to copy onto a tier 6. It makes sense, but it's still not getting that much damage out just because of how crappy Treasure Trove is. We'll keep going forward. It goes without saying, obviously, that it's really, really good on every single pet slot, obviously, so long as you're not in PvP or any PvE content that locks you out of using a friend medal. Obviously, you can go ahead and slap it on literally every single pet slot and get very, very good multipliers out of it. Again, the only problem is, though, that a lot of content locks you out of a friend medal. Olympia is an amazing candidate for it. Obviously, slot 4 right there is fantastic, copying onto slot 5. Again, a lot of these keywords are so freaking wonky, though. It's that, like, let's say you have, I don't know, Sora and Simba or Kingdom Hearts 3 Riku. It's like, you sort of want to put them there to take advantage of that tier 8 multiplier, but then you're sort of losing out on its own multiplier. And, I don't know, for Olympia, you'd be sort of better off having a strong medal in that slot right there. I don't know, it's a little bit of a problem, a little bit of an issue. Let's keep going, obviously ignore that. Moogle of Glory, same sort of thing. A 2.8 multiplier is not too bad, or you know, whatever your Keyblade is not a bad multiplier, copying onto the Fred slot, but it's not super, the pet slot rather, it's not super powerful either. It's sort of a weird attribute to be copying forward with, it's a little bit strange. And like I said before, Stroke of Midnight is a little bit funny. Obviously the best Keyblade in the entire game for it is Fenrir. With Fenrir, you can run extremely powerful setups. You could have a configuration like this, and you're not necessarily limited to running only power in a setup like this. Era is a really good buffer, basically giving a PSM debuff to all attributes, and so by the time you get around to like slot 5 here, for example, you could copy onto like Luxord, for example. Luxord giving himself, you know, magic-based strength and reverse-based strength means that you don't necessarily have to be locked into power. You can sort of make it work if you have medals that fill in the buffs that you're missing. I don't know, it's definitely going to lead to some interesting combinations. So overall, I think it's a really good medal. It just struggles to find a place. Like Darkgnaw, I think it'd be really good in as well, on the assumption that we get some pretty good reverse buffers pretty soon. We've had a ton of upright buffers, like we've had all the 5 foretellers and then the 3 new stained glass. We're really overdue for some reverse buffers, so I expect this to come, I don't know, kind of soon, honestly, because, yeah, like the reverse Keyblades are definitely missing out a little bit. But yeah, let's say we do get a really good reverse buffer, then that would make Toonamine really good in that slot right there. Obviously, basically, she's either going to cost 1 or 0, probably 0. So that would be very useful for her on a very expensive Keyblade like this, with only, you know, 10 gauges. And that basically sums it up. We're going to get back to Fairy Stars now. So, in effect, as much as I want to really go out and recommend a copycat medal just because of how useful it is, I don't know that I can super strongly, or at least like take it into consideration that it's a copycat medal, yeah, obviously, and it would be very good in all of your pet slots, again, assuming that you can actually use a frame medal. And if you can, then that's fantastic. Go ahead and borrow, you know, Sephiroth, Key Art 19, whatever, go to the hills with it. But it's like, let's say you've got a really good Phantom right now, and if you're thinking of only PvE content, where, let's say you want to use Fairy Stars, and then Phantom can sit right there in slot 6, you don't necessarily need to go ahead and have another forward copycat medal. At the same time, it's like whenever PvP rocks around, you know, whenever Missing Ache comes around in PvP, that Phantom is probably going to go on Missing Ache because, you know, it's a very expensive Keyblade to run, and Phantom is a 0 cost medal, and obviously very good for Missing Ache in general. You know, Divine Rose, whenever that pops around, it's like 2 reverse speed slots that are probably going to call for Phantom instead, so it's always good to have more options. And I think for a 5 Pool Mercy to get this Toonamine, especially if that comes with like the sub-slot medals, like a guaranteed tier 6 or tier 7 at 7 stars, it's going to be a really hard banner to pass up, an extremely hard banner to pass up, especially if it gives like 144 pet points when traded. That's going to be, I mean, as much as I don't know that I can necessarily use it right away, I'm pretty much going to have to pull for it. I don't think I'm going to have a choice. Like, 15 grand, that's pretty much a no-brainer for like an amazing copycat medal. Of course, bear in mind, if it is a tier 8, which it probably will be, that's going to be another thing requiring tier 8 fairies to evolve, which a lot of people don't have. Just plain and simple, a lot of people don't have. So, definitely keep all that in mind. Okay, so I held the video for a couple of hours just to confirm, but as of a few minutes ago in the Japanese version, this medal is now out. So her banner has been released. It is a 5 Pool Mercy, and she is a tier 8, like we expected. It's an interesting banner though, because it guarantees either a tier 5, tier 6, or tier 7 medal guaranteed at 7 stars. So, it's the first time that a guaranteed 7-star medal has been in the banner with such a large range, so tier 5 all the way up to tier 7 as the guaranteed. As much as I'm happy to see sub-slots in the banner, which I think it's a very good thing, it's like, oh, I thought we were done with tier 5s, and I thought every pull from this point onwards would be guaranteeing really good sub-slots, so a little bit sad about that, but definitely glad to have sub-slots at all, I guess. Hopefully in the global version we'll have 6 or 7 only. I'm really going like wishful thinking right now, but given that we typically have had a little bit better banners when it comes to guaranteed sub-slots in global, I'm really hoping that that trend stays the same here. Anyway, guys, I do really want to know what you think about this medal. We can actually have a look at JP content really quick right now. So, JP's getting like a raid event, new Union Cross, new avatar boards, all kind of good stuff coming up, which I'm assuming we'll get exactly the same stuff in the coming weeks. So, bear in mind, this nominee will be used as points for the High Squad Challenge. It will probably be worth a little less points than the KHUx 19, so I guess the very top players probably won't be running this at all. They'll probably have, you know, 6 copies of KHUx 19 or something ridiculous. But let me know what you think. I'm definitely think I'm gonna pull for this thing. Yeah, I can see myself pulling for it. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. I'll see you really soon, and yeah, all the best. Bye.